Hi guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to show you I got me a new little baby, a new member to my family. I just got her yesterday, so she's Jack Russell and Chihuahua mixed, and she's 8 weeks old. I haven't decided on a name for her yet. I just want to kind of get to know her a little bit first before I actually give her a name. So if you guys have any suggestions of names that would be cute for her, just kind of put them in the comments down below. So our today's story is going to be about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. This is a sad story of a girl that suffered years and years of abuse, and you'll find out more about that as we get into the story. But she actually ended up convincing a boy to murder her mother. So we'll get right into that story. Now today's story, it does have, a content warning. There's going to be there's sexual content, strong language, and description of murder scene, and description of a murder. So right now what I'll do is I'll just throw in that pre-recorded clip of my backstory like I always do at the beginning of my videos, and then we'll jump right into the story. Hi guys, welcome back. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry about the hair. I just had a shower, so it's still wet, so it looks kind of bad. But I'm going to, from now on, I'm going to start off by telling a little bit of my backstory of why I'm even doing this channel. First of all, I'm doing this channel because doing the research on the crimes and doing the videos keeps my mind busy. And there's a very specific reason as to why I have to keep my mind busy. Another reason why I'm doing this video is because the videos and the channel is because I'm hoping that one day I can make a little bit of money off of it, and also just bring some awareness about a specific thing. And this has to do with my backstory. I want to make a little bit of money of it because well, I'll explain that in a minute. Well, so my backstory. First of all, I'm a mother to 6 kids, 4 girls and 2 boys. I only have 5 living kids left because on December the 28th of 2020, which wasn't very long ago, my son committed suicide. And it's because, and he did it by shooting himself in the head. And I'm the one that found him. So, the main reason I'm telling you guys this is because in some of the videos that I do, it mentions suicide, and I make it emotional. If things to do with guns, I get emotional sometimes. So I just wanted to explain why, in case I ever do that. Now, the reason I want to make money off of this is because I want to start a foundation in my son's name that will help families. Everybody thinks about the expense of the funeral, but what they don't think about is maybe the cleanup after something like that. You have to pay to have it cleaned, and they don't think about the fact that sometimes family just needs to take time off work, and they still have to pay bills, so sometimes they don't get that luxury or that need met to be able to take time off work. So I'm hoping that one day these videos may do some good, and I may be able to start that to help families in this situation. So that's my story, guys. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I need to do this. And that's why sometimes I may get emotional in the videos. Just if anybody's out there that's watching, is having thoughts of suicide. It's somewhere that the pain don't go away. It just goes to the family members. It just passes on, so it don't go away. Just go get help, because it's out there. So guys, let's first talk about the victim, the murder victim. So her name was Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard. And she went by Dee Dee though. And so she was born on May the 3rd of 1967 in Chack Bay, Louisiana. And her parents had 5 children. And she was one of the 5. And her parents' names was Claude Anthony Petre Sr. and Emma Louise Gisclair. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, Dee Dee grew up there with her family in Golden Meadow, Louisiana. Now, family would later recall that when Dee Dee was young, at a very young age, she started to steal things from her family, like money and different things from her family, in kind of like a retaliation of when she did not get the things that she wanted. So she would retaliate by stealing them. Dee Dee was 24. She would meet Rod Blanchard, and she would end up becoming pregnant. And when their daughter they would end up getting married. And when their daughter, Gypsy Rose, was born, they picked the name Gypsy Rose because Dee Dee liked the name Gypsy, and Rod, he liked the name liked the group, not the name, the group Guns N' Roses. So they ended up naming her Gypsy Rose. Now, shortly after Gypsy was born, Rod did end up leaving because he realized that that it just wasn't going to work with Dee Dee, that they made a mistake and it just wasn't going to work. Now, Dee Dee tried and tried and tried to get Rod to come back home, and just nothing worked. He wouldn't come back home. So Dee Dee took little Gypsy and went to live with her family. Now, at one time, Dee Dee worked as a nurse, and Dee Dee's family actually had suspicion because Dee Dee took care of her mother when she was sick and couldn't take care of herself, and they actually was suspicious that Dee Dee actually killed her mom in 1997 by not feeding her and giving her medication and things like that. So they blamed Dee Dee for Dee Dee's mother's death. So now that we kind of have a backstory on Dee Dee, let's talk about Gypsy and talk about her life leading up to the crimes. Gypsy was born on July 27th of 1991, and she would grow up in Golden, for the first part of her life, Golden Meadows, Louisiana. Now, by the time that Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee would start saying and trying to convince everyone that Gypsy had sleep apnea. So she kept taking her to the doctor. This would result in overnight stays and tests being done, and they never found anything wrong with Gypsy. She was completely healthy and normal. Now, Rod, Gypsy's father, stayed in contact and in Gypsy's life. He cared about his daughter. He just couldn't get along with Dee Dee. Later on, Dee Dee would be convinced that Gypsy had all kinds of medical issues, one of those being muscular dystrophy. And she would say that this was due to an unspecified chromosomal disorder. And she would make, then at that point, she started making Gypsy use a walker. Now, when Gypsy was 7 or 8, around that age, she had a motorcycle accident with her grandfather. And then at that point, Dee Dee told Gypsy that the doctor told her she started having to use a wheelchair. So from that point on, and Gypsy had to stay in the wheelchair and couldn't walk around on her own. Her mother wouldn't let her. Gypsy often went to special needs events with her, like the Special Olympics and things like that, with her parents. And in 2001, Gypsy's mother would say that Gypsy was 8 years old, when in all reality she was 10 years old. And she was actually named the honorary queen of the crew of Mid-City, which is a child-oriented parade held during Mardi Gras in New Orleans that is for special needs children, and they always name a queen. And in 2001, Gypsy was named that queen, but they were under the impression that Gypsy was only 8 years old. Now, Gypsy stopped going to school after her 2nd grade year because her mother said that her illnesses was just too severe and that she just couldn't handle going to school. So then Dee Dee started actually homeschooling Gypsy. Now, Dee Dee and Gypsy moved in with Dee Dee's father and stepmother, and they claimed that Dee Dee would prepare the food and put Roundup weed killer in the stepmother's food, and poisoning her, causing her to become very ill. So they thought that Dee Dee was just poisoning her stepmother, making her ill. During this time, Dee Dee would be arrested on several minor charges, such as writing bad checks. And people started questioning Dee Dee about Gypsy's illnesses. And so Dee Dee would actually pack Gypsy up and move to Slidell, Louisiana. And shortly after they moved, then Gypsy's stepmother, actually all her illnesses went away, which pointed even more that Dee Dee was poisoning her. Now, in that town, after they moved, Dee Dee and Gypsy lived in public housing that they paid, and they paid their bills with child support money from Rod and public assistance. Now, they spent most of their time going to specialists for Gypsy, most of the time at Tolan Medical Center and Children's Hospital of New Orleans. Now, they were seeking treatments for illnesses that Dee Dee said Gypsy had. That included, I'm just going to read off the list here, hearing and vision problems, the muscular dystrophy. They said that she had seizures all the time, is what Dee Dee told them. Now, they would eventually take a biopsy and do different tests, and they said that Gypsy did not have the muscular dystrophy. But they did write out Gypsy medication for the seizures, even though Gypsy wasn't having seizures. Now, Dee Dee kept taking Gypsy to the ER for different, like, minor ailments. So I'm looking on here. I couldn't find the name of the medication that they actually put Gypsy on. I was just kind of looking to see if I wrote that down, but I didn't. Like I said, I always have my notes right here with me because I don't want to tell you guys something wrong, and I'm always looking at the notes just to make sure, just to double check myself. But so anyway, Dee Dee would constantly take Gypsy to doctors and hospitals for these illnesses that she really didn't have. Gypsy was healthy. She didn't have any health problems. August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the area. And because, the place where they lived got just devastated, they would go to a shelter for special needs people with special needs in Covington, Louisiana. Now, there she would tell everybody that Gypsy's birth certificate and medical records and everything that had to do with Gypsy and herself got destroyed in the hurricane. Now, there was a doctor there at the shelter, and they were from the Ozarks, and they suggested that Dee Dee take Gypsy and go to Missouri because that was a good area to get medical treatment and help for the types of illnesses that Dee Dee claimed Gypsy had. So they actually airlifted them to that area in Missouri that the doctor suggested that they relocate to. First, Dee Dee and Gypsy lived in a rented house that she paid for with public assistance and Rod's child support that he would pay. And this place, or this rented house, was in Aurora, Missouri. Now, in 2007, Gypsy was honored by the Olay Foundation, which advocates for the rights of feeding tube recipients, and she was honored as the Child of the Year. So then in 2008, the Habitat for Humanity actually built them a home as part of a large project in the north side of the Springfield, Missouri area. So they actually built this house for them, and Gypsy and Dee Dee actually moved there. But the reason that the Habitat for Humanity actually knew about Dee Dee and Gypsy is because the media just was ate up with their story. This is a single mom with a very special needs child that survived and had to relocate because of the hurricane. So the media just ate that story up, and they ended up getting a home built. Now, this home had a hot tub and it had a wheelchair ramp, so it was a really nice home that they had built for them. The media coverage of the story of Dee Dee, the community was just, they wanted to help in any way they could. It was just a very close, very good community. Now, some of the things that the community gave them was like they had charitable contributions. They had stays at the Ronald McDonald House during Gypsy's appointments. They got free trips to Walt Disney World and backstage passes to Miranda Lambert concerts, where Gypsy would actually get to get her picture taken with Miranda Lambert and get to talk to her and things. Now, a lot of this was made possible through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They just was constantly getting money and help and all these free trips and all these different things because Dee Dee kept saying that Gypsy was just so sick. Rod also kept sending his monthly child support payments of $1,200, and Rod and his new wife wanted to come visit, but Dee Dee would always either change the plans or make an excuse as to why they couldn't come. And Rod and his new wife, Rod is Gypsy's dad, would send presents for every holiday and every birthday and everything, even though they couldn't come see her. Now, Gypsy would go on to tell the community and her friends and everything that Rod was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and he just never could come to terms with Gypsy's health issues, and that's why that Rod was not in their lives and helping, because she told the community that she was getting no help, no child support, nothing from Rod. Gypsy's Gypsy, hold on. I don't want to tell you wrong on this, but, okay, now Gypsy continued taking Dee Dee to, sorry, gotta get the puppy. Would continue taking Gypsy to the doctors for different health problems and different things like that. And eventually, Dee Dee would start putting like it's a medicine that would numb. It's an anesthetic on her gums to numb her mouth that would make Gypsy drool. Now, they tried medications and things like that to stop Gypsy from drooling because they didn't know that she was putting the medicine on there. But I'm going to show you quick. It's super cute. It's just running around and playing. So they ended up trying medications to stop Gypsy from drooling, even though there was no reason for it. And eventually, they would take Gypsy's saliva glands out to stop her from drooling. Now, mixed with not having those saliva glands and the medication for the seizures, Gypsy's teeth would end up starting to rot and fall out. Now, Gypsy's mom actually shaved Gypsy's head to keep up with the appearance of, like, treatment from chemotherapy, to keep up with the thing that, the act that Gypsy had cancer. And Dee Dee would tell Gypsy that she did this because the medication she was on was going to make her hair fall out anyway, so that it would just be best to go ahead and do that, to go ahead and shave her head to keep it from just falling out and having bald spots. That way Gypsy could wear a wig. So when they went out, Gypsy would wear a wig. Now, Gypsy was about 5 feet tall, and she had a high-pitched, childlike voice. Now, when they would go out, Gypsy's mom, Dee Dee, would take out tanks of oxygen and extra feeding tubes to keep up with the looks of Gypsy being very sick. Gypsy did have a feeding tube, but that was because Gypsy's mom told the doctors that Gypsy couldn't eat. So they did put in a feeding tube, and Gypsy was fed Pediasure up into her 20s. So Gypsy's didn't have a whole lot of food intake up through her 20s. And then Dee Dee would control Gypsy through physical abuse. When she was in the presence of other people, she'd hold on to Gypsy's hand, Dee Dee would. And if Gypsy would start saying something that would make people start questioning, or if Gypsy would start acting in a way that people would question her illnesses, Dee Dee would squeeze Gypsy's hand really tight. And then when they got home or out of the sight of the people, Dee Dee would beat Gypsy with a hanger and just yell at her and scream at her. And just cry and say, do you want to ruin everything? And just treat Gypsy terrible. Springfield, one of Gypsy's doctors, a pediatric neurologist, started becoming suspicious of these illnesses that Dee Dee said Gypsy had. So he started running more tests on Gypsy, and he started seeing that Gypsy wasn't as sick as what Dee Dee was saying and letting on. So then he contacted the doctors in Louisiana and got records and talked to them about Gypsy. And he made notes on Gypsy's chart about this. Now, Dee Dee seen these notes, and so she quit taking Gypsy. She never took her back again. And the other doctors told this doctor to just not report it, not to say anything, because nobody was going to believe it, and that was just going to make him look bad. So this doctor never reported it, called children's services or anything of that nature, which I think was pretty stupid on this doctor's part, because he has proof something would have been done. So I think that was pretty stupid on his part, and that was just a failure on his part of protecting Gypsy. 2009, an unknown caller actually called into the police department and reported everything that was going on with Dee Dee and Gypsy. Dee Dee had actually forged birth certificates and everything for Gypsy, making it look like Gypsy was younger than what she was. Now, all of this was reported, and when the police came and talked to Dee Dee about it and just did a wellness check on Gypsy, Dee Dee said it was because she was trying to keep secret her location and Gypsy's location because of her abusive ex-husband. So the police bought all of the lies, and they closed the case out, and nothing was done. I think that maybe they should have contacted Rod and investigated a little better, but who am I to say what they should have done? It's not my job, right? So maybe I shouldn't judge, but that's just my opinion. She, throughout her life, tried to escape several times with no luck. One occasion, Gypsy's mother actually found Gypsy in a hotel room with a man. Now, this was after Gypsy was of age, but Gypsy tried to escape, and she just couldn't get away from her mother. Now, Gypsy started around the year 2012. Gypsy started just surfing the web and talking to people on different groups and things, and she actually met a man or a boy by the name of Nicholas Goodjohn, and they became close. They met in a Christian singles group, yes. So they became close. Now, Nicholas, he actually had some problems of his own. He had Asperger's syndrome, and then he suffered from dissociative identity disorder. And at the age of 23, Nicholas would actually get in trouble with the law because he went into a McDonald's, and he had a folding knife in his pocket. He went to McDonald's and started masturbating in front of people. So he got a charge of indecent exposure on his record. Now, Gypsy and Nicholas, like I said, they became close. They began flirting, and then they began talking about BDSM, and they started talking about eloping and deciding names for their future children. So they became very, very close. Gypsy's 23-year-old neighbor was pretty close to Gypsy. She looked at Gypsy as a younger sister, and Gypsy looked at her as like her best friend. So Gypsy confided in her and told her everything about Nicholas. Now, thinking that Gypsy was younger than what she was, Gypsy's friend and neighbor just advised Gypsy not to, to stop, because she was just worried that he was a sexual predator. So she actually did some print-offs of Nicholas's profile and different things, and just kept them just in case she would ever need them, because she was just really worried about Gypsy. Now, Dee Dee did try to stop Gypsy from surfing the web. She broke her phone, she broke her laptop, and everything like that. But Gypsy did stay in touch with Nicholas. She found ways to keep in touch with him. Now, Nicholas lived in Big Bend, Wisconsin. So Gypsy paid for and planned on and arranged for Nicholas to come to Springfield Now, she convinced her mother to take her to the movies. And what they did was, when the Gypsy and her mother got to the movies, Nicholas acted like and pretended like he bumped into them. And then he struck up a conversation so that he could meet Dee Dee. Dee Dee didn't like him, brushed him off. So Gypsy met Nicholas in the restroom, and they had sex there. Now, after Nicholas went back to Big Bend to Missouri or Wisconsin, they stayed in contact and they started making plans for their future. And they even came up with a couple of plans. One plan was that they would get Gypsy pregnant to where Gypsy's mother had to accept him and they could be together. The other was to plan on killing Dee Dee. Now, Nicholas would never really comment on the one plan to get Gypsy pregnant, so they would end up going through with the plan to kill Dee Dee. In June of 2015, Nicholas came back to Springfield. Now, once Dee Dee was in bed asleep, Gypsy let Nicholas come into the home. She gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife to kill her mother. She then went to the bathroom, covered her ears so that she didn't have to see or hear her mother die. So once Gypsy was in the bathroom, Nicholas went into the bedroom where Dee Dee was and stabbed her in the back 17 times while she slept. Now, after he killed her mother, Gypsy and Nicholas went to Gypsy's bedroom and had sex. They then took $4,000 out of the home and went to a hotel, got a room, and stayed there for a couple of days and just planned their next move. Now, what happened was, or what they done, is they took the knife, they mailed it back to Nicholas's house in Big Bend, and then they took a Greyhound bus back to his house. Now, on June the 14th is when Dee Dee's body was found. And how it was found was there was a Facebook post, a suspicious Facebook post that Dee Dee's friends seen on her Facebook. And they called Dee Dee and couldn't get no answer. They went by the house, realized the car was still there, so they knew Dee Dee had to be there. They knocked on the door, tried to look in the windows, couldn't see anything, couldn't get an answer, so they called the police. Now, the police had to get a search warrant, so they got the search warrant. They went in the home, and they found Dee Dee's body. And this was on June 14th of 2015. Now, they looked around to try to find Gypsy. They realized Gypsy's medicines was still there, all of her feeding tubes, her wheelchairs, everything was still there. So now they were very worried and scared about Gypsy, wondering where she was, thought something bad had happened to Gypsy. So now they're searching for Gypsy and asking for any information on the whereabouts of Gypsy or what happened. So they're investigating. So the neighbor, Gypsy's friend, the neighbor, told the police about Gypsy's online boyfriend because she's super worried about Gypsy, thought something bad happened to her. And she even showed them the printouts that she had kept just in case, and it had Nicholas's name on it. Now, the police contacted Facebook and had Facebook to trace the IP address for Dee Dee's post on her Facebook to see where it come from, and it led back to Wisconsin. So the next day, on June 15th, the police from that area went in and raided the home. Now, Gypsy and Nicholas actually gave themselves up, and they were taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Now, Gypsy actually sat down and told the police everything. Told them what happened, how her mother treated her, had done her. They were took back to Springfield and put in jail there with $1 million bond on each of them. And then at that point, everybody was just happy that Gypsy was okay. But then they made a press release of everything that Dee Dee had done to Gypsy and everything about the case. The whole neighborhood was just in shock that Gypsy could walk, that there was no medical issues with Gypsy. Just everybody was shocked at the case and just couldn't believe it. Now, at this point, everybody started looking at Gypsy as another victim, like she was a victim too, because of all the abuse and everything that she suffered. Now, in the state of Missouri, which is where they got tried at, it is with the first degree murder. You could get sentenced to death or life in prison without parole. But because of the abuse and things that Gypsy suffered throughout her life, the prosecutor said he wasn't going to push for that. Now, Gypsy's attorney obtained all of her medical records and gathered evidence and proof of Gypsy's abuse throughout her life. And he was able to get a plea bargain for second-degree murder. Now, in July of 2015, Gypsy actually accepted this plea bargain, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. So that's what Gypsy got, because Gypsy actually didn't kill her mom, and she really was a victim as well from Dee Dee abusing her for all those years. So she only got 10 years in prison. Now, Nicholas, he faced more severe charges because of the fact he was the one that killed Dee Dee. Now, his attorneys played off like, due to his mental illnesses and him loving Gypsy, Gypsy was able to convince him to do this, and just kind of played on his medical issues and Gypsy getting him to do this, and tried to get him a lesser charge. But he got charged on, let me just double check the date. His trial started in November of 2018, and he was actually found guilty of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Now, in February of 2019, Nicholas was sentenced to a life sentence because of the first-degree murder charge, and 25 years because of the armed criminal action charge. Now, they've tried to appeal it and different things like that, but it's all been denied. So he is going to have to spend his life in prison unless there is a change in the future on his appeals. This is a sad case. I mean, in my personal opinion, I feel like Gypsy was a victim as well. Gypsy struggled a lot throughout her life and was just mistreated and abused. And I feel like instead of being in prison, maybe she should be in a hospital somewhere getting help. I feel like that's only fair on her part, because she tried to escape and she couldn't. She was scared. Now, since all this has took place, Rod, her father, has been back in her life, which he's tried to remain in her life. You know, he tried to support her, and just Dee Dee made that impossible. But now her and her father are getting close, and he stands by her and just tries to make sure that he does the best he can by her, like he has her whole life. And Rod was just in shock as well, because he honestly believed that Gypsy was really sick. You know, Dee Dee played it off really well, so everybody was convinced that Gypsy was as sick as what she was. So the poor girl she felt trapped. She's even in interviews made comments that she feels safer in prison and more relaxed in prison, like it was a blessing to be in prison rather than to go through what she went through. And she said she wished that she would have known another way, and she wished her mother hadn't died. She really is remorseful about her mother's death. So this poor girl suffered a lot. I mean, it's not right. I'm not saying murder is right, but at the same time, she felt like she didn't have a way out. She was a victim as well. So I feel bad for her as well. It's a sad case. You can watch interviews just go in and search them up and watch interviews. There's actually a Netflix series called The Act that is about this story. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of good stuff that you guys can go watch. I've watched it. It's just a sad, sad case. So let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, you guys stay safe, be careful out there, because you never know what somebody's up to, what they're going to do, what they're capable of. I find that out more and more the more of these stories that I research. It's just crazy world we live in. So you guys stay safe, be careful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.